I think lesson was learned. What would you think?
Yeah, and sometimes you have to send those messages to young players, and sometimes people look at young running backs specifically and say, why isn't this guy playing more? Because he seems explosive, and they have much more athleticism than maybe a veteran player, and that's another thing nobody thinks about. And if first and foremost with young running backs, they don't play because they can't pass block. They can't pick up the blitz, and your quarterback killed. Yeah. And obviously, and when you're assigned to pick up a blitz, you're the last line of defense between, maybe a 260, 70-pound defensive end crashing down on your quarterback. So it's very important for coaches, and a lot of college players hit the pros. Remember the types of offenses that populate college football. It's all spread offenses these days. There's not a lot of exotic blitzes. There's not a lot of opportunities for them to practice picking up these types of blitzes on the college level. So they're behind the eight ball when they get to the NFL, and it's one of the things that they have a large difficulty picking up, and that's why you see so few running backs who are true three-down running backs that stay on the field. When you get a guy like Matt Forte in Chicago who does everything well, he runs the football, he's a good receiver, picks up the blitz. If you watch Indianapolis play, take a look at Ahmed Bradshaw on passing downs. He will stone people. He's the best blitz picker-upper in the game today. And those are types of things that, the casual fan's not going to notice, but it really, really is important to coaches.
You're listening to The Sports Fix. John McMullen from the Sports Network joining me here as we're talking about the Browns and yesterday's victory over Tampa. A couple of things from that game before we look at the rest of the NFL defensively. First off, I thought it was a tale of two halves for the Browns defense because really Bobby Rainey, Tampa was able to get some things going. They had the good drive early and the block by Billy Wynn, which, by the way, I don't know if you've seen it or if you saw it live or on replay, but I just thought, man, I know Billy Wynn. He's a big guy. What an athletic freak. He hurdles the blocker, comes down, and then goes up and gets the block on the field goal. I thought that was a very good play there. But they had some stuff going offensively and weren't able to punch it in and get the points there. Speaking of Tampa, Rainey was doing well, really well. He was on pace for 100 in the first half there, and then second half, bit of a different story. Browns defense came to play a little bit, but even in the pass game, you got the passes, the touchdowns to Mike Evans, but I thought there was a lot of good plays. Hayden with a really good tip for the interception there on the one play, Gibson with the interception, although that one looked like Mike Glennon threw it right to Tayshaun Gibson. I don't know about that one, but he picks up his sixth interception of the season, leading the NFL here, and he's first Brown in 4 years to get interceptions in 3 consecutive games. Joe Hayden, back in his rookie season, was the last Browns defender to do that. But defensively, talk to me a bit. I thought the Browns changed things up in the second half and did a much better job because it was looking like it could be a big day for Bobby Rainey.
Yeah, I think the guys up front struggled largely, especially early, but they didn't play well. Specifically Bryant and Rubin against the run, and the back seven kind of picked them up. I thought there were a lot of good performances in the back seven. Dansby's been very, very consistent the entire year. That was Hayden's best game of the year. He struggled, and we've talked about that before with people rating him so lowly. And he hasn't played well. There's no question. But at some point, the light's going to go on. He's just too talented a player, and I think it went on yesterday. He played tremendously as a whole, and I thought Mingo maybe had his best game of the year. So I think it's one of those things, though. If somebody's having a down game, just like we talked about on the offensive side with McDonald against McCoy. On the defensive side, I think it was, Bryant and Rubin were struggling, and other guys picked them up, and that's what you need to win these, so-called ugly football games. You need guys to pick up other guys, and maybe next week it'll be Bryant picking up, Dansby, or picking up Mingo. So that's how hopefully a defense comes together.
Yeah, and all of those guys you mentioned, I would say add Paul Kruger into there as well, because he has continued to do well. Got it for the season now. He's surpassed what he did last year in a half season here, which I think we all kind of anticipated. Him and Mingo and the linebackers, Sheard's been doing well as well. Picking up, because we know Pettin's defense picks up the linebackers a bit, more production out of them. So, but again as well, I thought that Kruger is continuing to do his thing. He's on pace for double-digit sacks here this season. But yeah, and I'm with you on the back seven, 100%. I said it at the beginning of the show. I thought maybe, I thought the uptick in Joe Hayden, yeah, it's also come with playing some of the lesser winning teams, but to the week that he was really getting the most heat in the media for being overrated and for not living up to his contract. And kind of for the last 3 weeks since then, he's took it up a bit each week and gone up another level and played up to what you expect out of him. I said, hey, sometimes you got to just get embarrassed and go, I do got to play better. I can play harder. I can. And you never know, man. Even though you're working hard, you never realize if that hunger's the same once you get paid as when you're kind of getting paid, And so maybe some of that is part of it, but I agree. Best game of the season for him so far yesterday. He's really starting to open up. I thought that play where he tipped the interception there to Whitner was just a great play to not be pass interference, especially with how they call pass interference nowadays. And I've been one that's gotten on Joe Hayden from time to time too, but he definitely stepped up his game yesterday.
Yeah, and as I said, I thought it was only a matter of time, because if you do look around this league, and I think people kind of get, and understandably so, they get myopic about watching their team, and they kind of don't see the trends elsewhere because they don't spend as much time watching teams outside their city. And the bottom line is it's very difficult to play pass coverage in today's NFL. It's just a reality of the situation. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who you are. Richard Sherman's gotten a lot of criticism in Seattle because Darrelle Revis at times gets criticism in New England when he gets beat because people, I don't know, they hear lockdown corner and they expect him to be, automatrons or robots, and that they never get beat. No, it's just that they're better than the other guys playing the position in the NFL right now. And it's very difficult to truly lock down receivers because, let's face it, we talk about it constantly. Everything in this game is geared towards the offense now, and the trends and the penalties and the ability to throw the football has never been easier. And you're going to see even players like Joe Hayden struggle at times. It doesn't mean they're bad players. Trust me, you can argue. Add Patrick Peterson to that, by the way, who's gotten a lot of criticism on a 7-1 Cardinals team.
Yeah.
But the point is, you would rather have Joe Hayden basically than any other cornerback not named Sherman, not named Revis, not named maybe Talib, not named Peterson. And if you're in the top 5, which most scouts in this league believe Joe Hayden is, you live with the hiccups.
I agree with you, man. I agree. And he stepped it up here, and hopefully that continues. On the other side of the ball, last thing I wanted to talk to you about, of course, you wouldn't know it, and I'm just curious if any other quarterback, if we were sitting here going, hey, man, halfway through the season, quarterback X has nearly 2,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, a couple of interceptions, 91 quarterback rating, what would you be saying about him? Because I guarantee you it's not some of the things that have been talked about, and we know about Brian Hoyer here and in Cleveland. And, of course, some of that is because of the pressure that comes with somebody behind him that some people want to play. But I still, at the same time, get a trip out of, whether it's the fans booing a bit because the offense isn't. And like you said, that's a good next level to go to. But seriously, yesterday, Hoyer, second half, came back, played much better, and ended up with a good game. One of only 3 guys with 300 yards yesterday. But looking at that stat line that I gave you, and as that, if you want to project that out, it's about 4,000 yards, which I know in today's NFL is not high end like it used to be. That's just, middle of the road. But 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions, 7, 8, somewhere in that area most likely, and around a 90-plus quarterback rating, man. That's a solid season, even in an NFL that appreciates offense more than it used to.
Yeah, and you're right, and I do think people, same thing we just talked about with Joe Hayden. I mean, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, when you look at the truly elite quarterbacks, and we know, you look at Tom Brady, you look at Peyton Manning, save for yesterday, you look at, the way Ben Roethlisberger's been thrown around for the past couple of weeks. I think people get envious of that, but again, it's the myopic view. You fail to realize, look at the Mike Glennons. You just saw Mike Glennon. Look at Geno Smith. Look at Jake Locker, and now he's replaced with Zach Mettenberger. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks in this league, and it's not easy to find Tom Brady. It's not easy to find Drew Brees. It's not easy to find Aaron Rodgers. So, Brian Hoyer is 8-3 as the team starter. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what more you can do.
What else do you
want?
We
talked about it a number of weeks ago. The conversation is off the table. Johnny Manziel's not playing anytime soon, barring injury, of course. We always put that caveat on everything because this is a very violent sport. You just saw Nick Foles go down yesterday. So that aspect of it, on the field that way. But as far as production goes, you got to give the guy's earned rope. He's the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns moving forward. They're 5-3 going into Cincinnati with a chance to first place in the division, at least in the loss column, in the Bengals. And you go in 5-3, they're 5-2-1. All of a sudden, you pull off an upset. You've leapfrogged then, and you're right there with the Steelers. It's ludicrous to even bring the conversation up at this point. It really is.
Yeah, I'm with you. And let me throw this in here for people that want to know what the Browns' mindset is, because everybody speculates that. And if you would listen to the media, well, you wouldn't have a clue sometimes. But if you listen to some of them, you would think that the Browns are the ones sitting there going, "We don't know what." The Browns know exactly what they want to do. It's what they have done. It's why you've never once seen Johnny throwing a pass on the sideline. You've never seen him even in a discussion to go in a game. He's never done anything other than sit there with his woolly cap on and watch the game on the sidelines, and that's it. And there's a reason for that. And check this out. The Browns, I'm pretty good with noticing the little PR tricks of these teams. They all send us stuff after every game, and they love to tell you the things that they did good in a loss and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, in this week's batch of stats that the Browns sent, they went out of their way to add so that people would report it this week that Brian Hoyer became the first Browns quarterback to throw for at least 200 yards in the entire first half of a Browns season for each game since Brian Sipe in 1983. We're not talking about since a few years ago, since 30-plus years ago, and that's with the escalating offense from the last few decades and all of that. So I continue to go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. Apparently, some of these cats were watching that other Cleveland Browns team that's been playing, not the one that I've been watching and that many of us in reality have seen, because they've clearly been watching the team that's on the verge of a Super Bowl and needs to take the piece to take that next step to the Super Bowl, and not what reality has been. I just get a trip out of that. But when I see that stat, that tells me that the Browns are laying it out there. Listen, man, this is our guy. And like you said, they've made it clear as day to everybody except the people that won't give up the ghost, if you will, that one more bad pass and that they're going to be ready to make that switch. And I think part of that is the media. I truly believe that some of those fans that sit in that stadium are hoodwinked from hearing it over and over again that this guy would be doing so much better if he was in there. And Hoyer stinks. And this, I'll tell you what, by the way,